welcome to Enlighten Me, and I'd love to welcome Vinny Tolman. Thank you so much for coming on our channel. We're so excited to talk to you
Thanks for
today.
having me. I'm glad to be here.
And I'm Katie, and this is my brother AJ. And we've been intrigued by near-death experiences for some time, but like I heard your story on previous interviews, and I was like so impressed, like intrigued by everything you said. Like I just want to dive deeper into everything I heard. So I was like so excited that you were offering to come on our channel. So
yeah,
really
it's my pleasure. I love spreading in the old Bible terms, the good word. I love spreading the good word everywhere that I can, because I think most of us were born into a system that we didn't really know what we were getting into. And if this can shed a little bit of light on things for people, hey, I love it. Yeah.
It's so nice, like to go through what you went through, like to not share it, like that would just be like keeping something so profound to yourself. It'd just be like a shame. Yeah, I'm so excited to hear everything about your story.
And I tried that for a while to not share it, and it didn't work out so well, so I had to start sharing it.
Yeah, I guess God was telling you got to get out there and tell what you found out.
Get out there and share it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we're very eager to jump in, so feel free if you'd like to give any background or just jump right into the experience.
Yeah, what was life like before you actually had the experience?
So before I had the experience, I was an amateur bodybuilder, and I had primarily worked in construction almost my whole life. But I had done a short stint of about 5 years working on TV and film, and that was really fun. It was a great time. I was moved on beyond that, though, at the time, back into construction when this all happened. I was bodybuilding and took a new supplement that we got was bad. It was toxic, and me and my best friend, we both took it, and instantly we felt sick. So we went down to a Dairy Queen and walked into that Dairy Queen, and I went in the bathroom, locked the door, and I died right there on the floor. I aspirated. Meanwhile, my buddy, he went in and collapsed on the booth on one of the dining tables, and he vomited all over. They called 911, got him hauled away. But with me, I was dead on the floor, and I was dead for about 45 minutes before they even found me. And a manager of the restaurant actually opened the bathroom because it had been locked for so long, and he saw this dead guy sitting on the floor, or laying on the floor. And for my perspective, it was really weird because I could see it from above, and I was watching all of this from above, but I didn't know it was me. Not even for a second did I think it was me, because me was up here, watching things. So I watched along as they tried to touch this body and see if it was alive. They could tell it was dead. They also called 911, got a second ambulance there. The second ambulance did arrive about almost an hour after I had gone in that bathroom. So they pronounced it dead as well. They did a DOA certification. They bagged up the body. They put it in the back of an ambulance. They took their time. They were doing a bunch of paperwork. There was a rookie medic. His job was to go babysit the body in the ambulance while the other two did the work. And while he was back there, he was really berating himself and kind of going to town mentally. And this is a weird part. I could hear his thoughts. I could hear him talking to himself, saying, why didn't we try harder? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? And I could feel him wanting to do more. And as soon as the ambulance started to leave the scene there, he started to actually have this light start to glow around his heart space. And it was really odd. And I was like, oh, here goes the special effects. Because working in the movie industry, I was like, let's see what these special effects. I still thought it was so weird, though, that I was watching this movie from above. I had never seen anybody shoot a movie from the point of view from above. So that was pretty interesting. And as I saw this light start to glow around him, I heard a very audibly, very loud, someone say, "This one's not dead." And I feel like he heard it too. Later, I got to meet with him. He said he didn't hear it, but he felt something. and he didn't do anything. You could see he kind of responded a little bit, but he didn't do anything. Then a second time, and that loud voice came and said, "This one's not dead." And when the second time it happened, he instantly like sprung into motion. He unzipped the body bag. He started feeling around the body to see if he could feel anything. He didn't feel anything. He went down to the inner thigh, and at the inner thigh you have a big artery there. He was trying to feel if there was any blood moving in that big artery. And when he felt down there, he actually made contact with my femur bone. And when he did, I felt like a spark or an ignition between me and him. And still, dummy me, I didn't think, well, that's my body. Not at all. I thought, well, that's odd. How did they get that spark to spark me up here? I didn't even think that's my body. Not yet. And then as this was all, he took that as a symbol or a sign that it was worth trying to resuscitate this body. So he did get some oxygen fed into the lungs. He hooked me up to a defib machine and started shocking the body. And then as the shocks were happening, nothing was happening the first round. The second round, he did get one single heartbeat. And kind of procedure is they let him go, I think 3 rounds normally. So they went to that third round, and on the third round, it got a steady heartbeat. And at this point, when the heart started, it was exactly 47 minutes after pronouncement of death, of being pronounced DOA. And they think at least I was dead at least 45 minutes before that, if not an hour before that. So there was a pretty much a guaranteed an hour and a half of oxygen dead or brain dead.
At that point,
with
did
no
you like
heartbeat.
pop back in to the body?
No,
No?
I was still watching from above.
Oh my God.
And I could feel like the angst and the excitement and all of that, because the other 2 medics in the front, they were going to town yelling at the rookie, saying he was going to get fired for doing this. And in fact, he almost did. Heaven forbid, he saved a guy and he almost got fired for it.
Yeah.
But he ended up, getting that heart back up and running. And when it happened, they were only a half block from a hospital.
Wow.
So they were able to, the way that they were driving, it just so happened that heart started within a few hundred feet of the hospital. They pulled right into a hospital, turned in the body. And at that point, when they were transferring the body from the medical gurney over to the hospital gurney or the hospital bed, that's when I recognized it was my body. But here's how I recognized it. The body started going into all these seizures, and it was like pulsating and vomiting and all sorts of gross stuff happening. And as it was happening, they had to strap down the legs and the arms. And they strapped the legs down, no problem. They strapped the right arm, no problem. But when they went to strap the left arm, now again, I was a bodybuilder. I resisted it, and I broke the strap. I like literally broke it on the left arm. And I looked down because I could feel someone restraining my left arm where I was sitting watching all this. And when that happened, I realized, I'm like, that's the body, that's the arm of the body. That's not my arm. And then I realized, wait, that's my arm. And that was the first inkling that I had that it was actually my body that I'd been watching the whole time. And I had this overwhelming sense of like fear and that I was some type of idiot because I didn't realize that everything I've been watching for hours now was my own death and my own body. I had no idea. And so I felt really dumb. I was like, I felt thoughts like, you're such an idiot. How could you not know you've been watching your own death? How could you not know this is your own body?
Well, that doesn't happen every day, so I'm sure
yeah.
it's okay.
So,
you can let that one go.
Exactly, right? So I was, yeah, go ahead.
Isn't this, I mean, has that ever, I mean, I've never heard of anybody coming back after like,
that long.
I think after so many minutes and you're pronounced dead, I think the medical field considers it completely impossible for you to come back after a certain amount of time, right?
They think that essentially like after 3 minutes, it's impossible. Yeah. So to even go, after 3 minutes, it's pretty much
So
impossible.
you're in the
But
record books, I guess. You're
well,
out there.
what's crazy is there's nobody keeping record of guys like me.
Oh,
There's nobody keeping record of those except for a group called IONS, which
yeah.
is the International Association of Near-Death Studies. But here's the crazy thing, like there's people recorded of waking up during their autopsy.
Oh my gosh.
That means they're 3 or 4 days after they were pronounced dead. So there's and those cases, there's not a ton of them, but I've met 2 of them myself. 2. I've met 2 wake up autopsy people through my connection through IONS, one of them, and then the other one through as a coworker. I worked with him.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
I wonder if they're hiding this because they have no explanation. I mean, I don't know if
Well,
they're necessarily hiding it,
here's
but they're
the
not recording it properly. It sounds like they're not
well,
being fully
well,
open with
understand
it.
this. If they start recording it, and now when you pronounce someone dead, they're not
Yes,
really
No one's
exactly,
gonna
that
believe
exactly.
it. No
What kind
one's
of
gonna
lawsuits you're
believe
going to face? What kind of liability you're
liability
going to face?
wise, yeah. And
Yeah,
if you create some type of precedent or law on it, then that
right.
means when someone really does die, how
it. Will
how
not.
much did they try? Did they do what they did for Vinny? Because that worked for Vinny. Does that work for everybody? I don't think so.
Vinny special. We know
I
that.
think I think that it really boils down to your own path, your own individual contract with God. Really, that's what it is for me. Is
Mm,
that's why I was allowed that time. But to me, that's also why I was cursed back to come to earth. Because to truly go from heaven to earth is a curse. It's not a blessing. It's a blessing for
everyone else.
others, but not for me. Not at all for me.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's hear more because it sounds very interesting.
So
Yeah.
I was going through this like dark phase of trying to figure out like how could I have been so stupid to not know that I was watching my own death. And when that happened, I actually spiraled into this dark place, and I started to see every bad thing I ever did in my life, every bad thing. And I didn't just see it from my own eyes. I saw it from the eyes of those that I did it to. And I mean even from 3-4 years old all the way up till current date at that time, which I was 25 then. And I saw everything bad I ever did. And now I had this thought, you're such an idiot. You didn't even know you were dead. Now you see all the bad that you've done. Like, why are you even here? I had that thought. Like, why am I even here? And that's when I felt this like overwhelming warmth come over my back. And all of a sudden, really quick, I started to flash and see all the good I ever did. And I saw way more good that I ever did than I saw bad. I also saw it from the perspective of people that I was doing good to. I also saw that sometimes I didn't even know I was doing good and I was doing good. And that sometimes the people I did good for, they turned around and did good. So I got to see like multi-generationally the butterfly effect, how good reflected good reflected good. And then I started to change my mind and started to truly believe in the deepest part of my heart, like, I guess I am worth existing. I guess I am worth being. And as soon as I allowed that thought in me, I felt like I escaped what kind of hell there is. Because I don't want to say there's not a hell, because to me, the closest thing to hell is earth life. It really is. Life here is about the closest thing to hell. And while we're here on earth life, we can get inside of our own brain and we can create even a worse hell than this place, right? And so in our consciousness there is a capacity for a hell, but to me that's about as bad as it gets. And it's all controlled by us, not by outside forces. We're not a plinko chip bouncing around in between options and possibilities. It's all on us. And if we don't feel that we're worth heaven, if we don't feel that we are worthy of that place, then we'll prevent ourselves from going there.
Wow.
Because we
That's so
can't.
much, so much right there. I mean,
Yeah.
if we could just pause for a second, like you saw all of this, and so is it? I mean, I've heard this before, but it's really hard to understand being here on Earth, where time is time. It almost sounds like if you were able to, you saw like your life of experiences, and I mean, does time not even exist when
Time
you're?
doesn't exist. Time
It,
doesn't. Yeah.
but you were
And if
able to fully see and comprehend all of these feelings, how it affected other people, how those people went on to affect other people. And you were able to see just all of that. And
Yeah, in a matter of maybe a couple seconds in this earth life. Yeah, it was just a moment in this earth life, but to me it was stretched out like taffy. Like it was like pulled real long and wide, where I could actually process it and understand it. And that's kind of how heaven works. They send instant downloads, and then it takes time for us to unlock those downloads and kind of pick them apart to figure out what they are. And yeah, so there is no time though, for sure. Yeah, time is a rule that only exists here, and it doesn't exist in the eternities. In the eternities, the further you get away from Earth and from gravity, where where Earth is, that's where gravity is. And so the further you get away from that, the more you see time getting fuzzy and getting a little bit more malleable. And then you actually see time completely disappearing the further you get away.
amazing. And so after you're back, I don't mean to jump ahead. You can let me know if I'm jumping too far ahead. But like after you come back, do you feel like you're still processing all those thoughts that you went through, or do you feel like
Absolutely.
somehow you were able to see those and process those very efficiently, very effectively during this experience, and now you came back and you're kind of, I know who I need to be or how to be authentic, and I know, or do you see what I'm saying, or do you feel like you have more processing to do of everything?
Still, so it's been now 20, we're coming up on 21 years since my experience, and I still process part of it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's almost like parts of it have unlocked for me as I was ready to receive them.
Yeah, that's what I heard
Like
from
over
others.
the years. Yeah.
Wow.
And
Like
it's kind
little
of like a
remember
multi-layered,
certain things.
like a time capsule. And
Mhm.
after so much time has passed, I can now unlock certain aspects of my experience. Yeah.
As you're ready for it.
As I'm ready for it, as the world's ready for it, as time is ready for it. Yeah.
So you they started to have the body reactivate the body.
Mm-hmm.
And so what happened then? Or what?
So as they were doing that, they did get the rest of the systems started to go. So they were able to get, cardiology was the first to get going. The one that they couldn't get is neurology. So clinically and technically, I was existing under 10% total brain activity for the whole time while I was in a coma. And so overall, they would consider that like a brain trauma or oxygen, starving trauma for the brain. And so I was brain dead for 3 days. So while I was in heaven, and I did go to heaven, I got, to have my experience. My body was in this coma state or comatose state where there was no brain activity while I was gone.
So the whole time you never went back into your body from the time that you died till the end of the coma. You were up
Yeah.
the whole
I
time. You were there.
I wanted to play. I wanted to go and see what this was all about, because to me, as soon as this all happened and I felt that warmth come over me, that was just so healing, and it let me see all the good that I ever did. And I recognized that it was coming from directionally from behind me. So I turned around and I saw this man there named and he introduced himself as Drake. I thought he was God, but he right off the bat was like, no, I'm not God. You can call me Drake. I'm here to be your guide. I'm here to help you go wherever you want to go. And he motioned, I can help you go back to your body. And he like pointed over towards the body. And just looking back at it and seeing the pain and the trauma and the turmoil that was going on, I'm like, I almost said, hell no. I was like, no, I don't want to go
What's
back to
option
that
B?
body.
Said I almost
Yeah.
said hell no.
Yeah. So I was like, no, I don't want that. And he's like, well, you can go anywhere in the universe. And that's when I was thinking it, for a second, I was like, anywhere in the universe? And he's like, yeah, anywhere in the universe. But then I kept going back to this warm energy that was coming from him. And rather than go on some tourist trip and go see different parts of the universe, I wanted to go see where this energy was coming from.
Mhm.
I wanted to see the source of it. And so that's what I told him. I want to see the source of this loving energy that's coming from you. And as soon as I said that, he got really excited because he's like, well, that's awesome, because that's my home. That's your home. We can take you to your home. And so I was like, okay, let's go home. Let's go home. So we began a journey. And he explained right from the get-go that it was going to be a different journey than what I was ever used to. That I would be moving from point A to point B, but at the same time, I would be moving from low dimension to high dimension. And to raise your dimensions or raise your dimension of understanding, you have to raise your love energy. And he called it frequency because I understood frequency, the term. And he said, you're going to have to raise your frequency. And what that is, just your love energy.
Mhm.
So we began this journey. And I was like, okay, I bet it starts with love. I'm sure it starts with love. Everybody says love's the most important thing. And he's like, actually, no. Love is important, and it is fundamentally important. But until you can be authentic and know who you really are, you can't be loved and you can't share love. And that was really weird to me. I thought, well, love's got to be the foundation. And he explained that love is a foundation, but first I had to understand authenticity. So for me to even go on this journey, I had to figure out who I was. I had to look and see that I had a lot of different masks I wore. I wore masks for working on TV. I wore masks for working on construction sites. I wore masks that I wore when I worked with the client that I was building the home for. So it was like I wore all these different masks. And then I'd wear a different mask at church on Sunday, wear a different mask with mom and dad. And all of these masks were parts of who I was, but they weren't who I was. And he helped me understand that I could peel away all those masks and I could be okay with whoever shows up.
Wow.
And I could be that person when I'm with my parents. I could be that same person when I go to church or when I go to construction sites or movie sets. Like I could be that same person everywhere. And I felt like, wow, that would be really cool. That would be like so much freedom to be able to do that. And he explained that that's why authenticity is the number one thing I had to learn. For
Did he
me, that was the
explain
number
how
one
to
thing.
get to your authentic self, like what you need to do or how you need
Was it letting these things kind of fall away, I guess, and
He was.
to
So he was letting me see that each one of these masks I was putting up, it was kind of like a protection. Like I would become like the movie set guy, and I would have a little bit of a different personality when I was working on movie sets. And then I would become like the construction guy
yeah,
and have a little bit rougher language about how I talk and that kind
yeah.
of thing. And then I get around mom and dad and I become the son. And then I get around church and I'd be, oh, be good on Sunday guy, and then be back to my normal self the rest of the week. So I had all these different faces. As I could recognize that I was putting one up, I could also put it down.
Mm.
And in the action of putting it down, I become me, my real self. And that's what he helped me do. He helped me become my authentic self. And as soon as I found that, he was like, okay, this is the foundation of where we can move. This is the foundation of where you can actually truly receive love as well as give love.
Mm.
I love that.
Yeah.
I get chills hearing that. It's a simple message, but
Yeah.
I feel like I do that. I'm different in
Yeah.
different situations
Everyone is.
and
Mm.
but I do, it just seemed like it'd be very freeing to not have to feel that way and just be like, here, this is who I am.
And I don't have to be
Yeah.
funny all the time, and I don't have to
Yeah.
do this all the time. I can just be me. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's funny, like if you can just be yourself, it's weird, but it's so freeing. It's so freeing to be the same you wherever you go. And they showed me though when I was going through this, in our society, the most authentic people are under 5 years old or over 85 years old. So for some reason, from 5 to 85, we have this need to become something so that we don't stand out too much or so that we don't be too different than the group that we're looking at or working with. And so I've really set a goal for myself to act like I'm under 5 or over 85.
Oh,
And
that's a good
just be as
I love
authentic
it.
as
I'm gonna go with the
possible.
under 5.
Yeah, under 5 is kind of, what's funny though is if you take an over 85 and under 5,
Yeah.
they kind of have the same day. They really do. So there's a lot of similarity there.
Yeah.
Definitely some similarity. Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
cool.
And it's funny, as further you go on that scale, you get diapers involved too, which is
Yeah.
kinda cool.
I wasn't gonna go there. Sure. So like I imagine a lot of times in your life, you probably almost feel like, okay, mask going up. Wait, now I'm aware of it. I don't need it, and just kind of let it go. And are you kind of always learning how to be more authentic? That's a daily.
So for me, it's a daily. It is a
Yeah.
daily, because you don't realize how often you're picking up those masks.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
you do. And we start when we're little children, when we're about 5 or 6 years old, we start putting up these masks. And the reason why we're putting them up is because the ones who didn't are getting made fun of, or they're getting kind
That's
of
true. Yeah.
pointed out and targeted
And
so
judged
and judged. Yeah. And
Yeah,
so
I mean,
we
now that you say
decide at a
that,
young age. Yeah.
that makes so much sense because I don't have kids, but a lot of nephews and nieces, and I see them up to around 5, and just full of personality. You see who they are, and they're shining in their own personality. And then a lot of times I've seen them like getting quiet, and I'm like, I almost feel sad for them because it's like,
It's the teenage
why do they
years.
feel like they have to shut down? Like they were just beaming with this incredible, unique energy and creativity. And then I've shared this with you before. It's
Yeah.
like I just wish they didn't feel like they had to now shut down and like turn down the volume and be so, just trying so hard to fit in. Yeah.
It's also just like the way that it just works. People just do that. I don't think it's like I guess it's not intentional. It's just like like you get to that age, you're like 9, 10, 11, and you go through the awkward stage, and you're just like, I think that they just change. Like,
Yeah.
it's not intentional, but it just happens no matter what.
It's almost subconscious, because you do watch what things make you stand out, and you start retracting those things.
Yeah.
Or restricting those things. Yeah. And it's really funny too, though. Once you get into your 20s, you're doing the opposite. You're like, I need to stand out. I need to do something different, and you do it for a little bit, and then you get into your 40s, and you're like, no, that's not anymore.
Yeah, I'm done.
So it's funny how we go through phases of it, but really, at the root of it is that authentic self, and that's the self that the world needs. Because it's amazing that if you can allow yourself to be open to the world, and more importantly to the world than to spirit and to God, then you're allowing yourself to be vulnerable, and where you find vulnerability, you find ability to grow. And if you're putting up a mask, you're never allowing yourself to be vulnerable, ever.
That's true. That's true.
It's true. It's a great
And
point.
the way you can connect with other people is by being that vulnerable person, and connecting with other people is a big factor about what God wants for us too, I'm sure. So if you're your authentic self connecting to another authentic person, it's a real connection, but otherwise it's just all fake.
Yeah. And in just recent studies, they've found that every emotion of the human psyche has a different frequency. And wouldn't you know, the highest of the scale that's ever been read is authenticity. It gets a higher score than feeling loved, or giving love, or feeling gratification, or all the different feelings we have as humans. Authenticity is the highest. And when you can start out your day as an authentic self, that means you're starting out the day at such a high energy. And that's the goal. That's what we should all be having as a goal, is total authenticness. Authenticity.
Do you feel like your authenticity,
authenticity.
I've been saying that too many times now.
Yeah.
But your that for you, because like if we're each authentic, we're each bringing something unique to the world.
Yep.
In a sense. And so do you feel like for you it's this message?
Yes. I feel for me, it is partially this message. I feel that it goes even further, that the more that we can be authentic ourselves, the more we give strength to others being authentic. And if we would just wake up, we're a bunch of ingredients that have been put in a bowl, and we don't all want to be flour. We don't all want to be baking soda. We don't all want to be oatmeal. Like, some of us are chocolate chips, some of us are sugar, some of us are butter. Like, we want to be the different things that we are, so that we can become the chocolate chips that we're supposed, or the chocolate chip cookies that we're supposed to become mixed up together. And if all of us go up with these masks that we're all flour, don't mess with me, I'm flour,
There's enough flour in the world.
there's too much flour, too much flour. So take down those masks and allow yourself to be the brown sugar, or the chocolate, or the flour, but authentically the flour.
Yeah.
So part of while you're in heaven, do you feel like you grasped an understanding of why you came here in the first place, why you had this experience, why you went there, why you came back?
In fact, that was the next thing I learned. Is as soon as I learned authenticity, I had to learn why we came here. And I was raised in a really strict Christian home. And in that home, we were raised to believe that we're here on earth to be judged, either good or bad. And the good go to heaven, the bad go to hell. But that good and bad line was very liquid. And there was times where I felt like I was good. There was times I felt like I was bad. And sometimes in my life prior to that, I felt I was not worth saving, even because of certain activities. And so I thought I was a throwaway for God, so why try at that point? And that's kind of what led me down a dark path in my life, where I really went deep into drugs and partying and living kind of that crazy single life. And it was because I felt like, well, I've already sinned past that line. So if I'm past that line of saving, then why would I try any further? Just go party. And that's when I realized that, through this experience, God's loving us up and down that ladder of self-judgment, and that judgment's only coming from self. That God's not up there with this eternal love for us, thinking, well, I love you as long as you're doing good. I love you as well as long as you're trying to not do bad. God's loving us. Either he loves us or he doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, that's just a fact, right?
It's never too late.
And we know that the Creator loves us. We, like, anybody who knows and really connects to spirit energy, they know for a fact that the Creator loves us absolutely. And that means that if he truly loves us, he's going to love us whether we're sinning, whether we're winning, whether we're climbing the ladder, descending the ladder. He's loving us all the way through, and it's unconditional. And that's what I had to learn, is why we're here is so that we can learn. That's it. We come to Earth school, and that's what they call it there from heaven. They call Earth, they call it a school. And they said we descend or leave heaven to go to Earth school so that we can learn to get better at things. That's it. And one of the hardest things to get better at is loving and caring and building relationships. So that's also why it's one of the hardest things to do here, is to love and to care and to build relationships. And one of the reasons why it's hard is because we're not authentic. And if we're not authentic, we can't love ourselves, let alone love anyone else. Yeah.
Well, I love the concept of that we're here for school.
Yeah.
Did you see the other schools?
I got to get a glimpse, and there's more other schools than you could think of. There's more other worlds than there is sands in the sea.
Oh my gosh.
There's so many. But here's the thing, humans, like what we are, Earth school is our primary place. Like, there's other schools as a human you can go to, but for human energy form, Earth school is the primary place to go. Yeah.
Did you see other beings in heaven?
Yeah, that's a whole nother call, though.
Okay, let's put that, folks.
We're
I did
booking that
see-
one.
So I'll say
so many
this.
questions.
I saw beings from our past and from our future. And it's so weird, because if you look far enough into our future, you will actually see our past. And if you look far enough into our past on Earth, you will actually see our future. So what's happening is Earth School is a cycle. It's just a cycle, and it cycles up towards the heaven space and away from the heaven space, up to the heaven space and away from it. So it's actually just like the way that we rotate around the sun. Earth School itself, in fact, our whole galaxy is on that same rotation, that same evolution of going towards heaven, away from heaven, towards heaven, away from heaven. So it's a long cycle, though, much longer than what a human life is. In fact, hundreds of human lives, much larger than that cycle even. But Earth School is playing its part, and it's on a trajectory now back towards the heaven space, back towards the enlightened high frequency space.
That's
So you're
amazing.
saying like during time, people start getting like lower vibration and worse, and then they get more enlightened, and then they go back, but it's like multiple, like hundreds of years. Like
Yeah, exactly. The same way that we will in our microcosm of our own life, right? Like we'll have good periods where we become a parent, we're taking care of kids, it makes you become more selfless. And then after so many years, you're like, I need to be selfish. Like you have that side of you, like because you've neglected yourself for so long, you feel like you need to give yourself some attention, otherwise you're gonna die. So it's just like that. So you got to go into the selfish cycle, and then the selfless cycle, and then selfish cycle. And that's the power of the yin and yang. That's the power of the dark and the light. Is it all plays a purpose? And if you can step away from the paradigm of my mistake is the whole world, you can actually recognize that some of your biggest mistakes are actually good things in the long run because of what it did for you, how it helped you move forward, how it helped you move towards the light. And when I see bad things happening on the earth stage, I always think that as the horrible things happening, I think, oh, wow, can you imagine the light that's going to come as a reciprocation to this dark? And so when I see wars, when I see tragedy, when I see trauma happening to anyone on this planet, I know that the reciprocation is going to be so much more, so much greater, so much better. Yeah.
That makes sense. Like we interviewed another lady, and she was saying it's not what happens to me, it's what happens for me, and everything is a learning experience. And even if it seems terrible in the moment, it's that happened for me, so I can learn this, and just have to change your perspective on it.
Absolutely. And if you would understand that anytime you watch a door close and it bumps you on the nose, that happens so you can turn around and get a bigger door that's opening behind you. And the hardest part, though, as humans, we get that door closing in front of us, and we want to have a pity party. We want to feel bad for ourselves. We want to pull out the V card, the victim card. And when we pull that out, all it's doing is taking us on our ladder of life and sending us down.
Oh,
Being
yeah.
a
We
victim,
haven't learned what this means.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So if we want to fail more, just become a victim of any kind.
Wow.
Any kind of victim. Allow yourself to be a victim, because here's the thing: I've seen real victims never classify themselves as victims ever.
Yeah.
So overcome, allow yourself to recognize that there is nothing that this world can throw at you that God can't erase with a few seconds of the love that he pours over you instantly, the second that you're crossing over. Yeah.
Beautiful. So does the soul, so beyond this world, but does our soul have a beginning or end, or is it?
No.
I know I'm getting very big with these questions here. I'm just curious what you took away.
Here's what's really neat is quantum physicists will agree with me on this. The energy can never be created or destroyed. It's only changed from form to form to form. Right. So if you take our core energy of who we are individually as souls, and you take us far back enough on our scale of existence, we were probably some type of basic energy in the beginning. But as we've changed from form to form to form, we have accelerated that energy. We have raised that energy and brightened it and magnified it. And as we do, we are bringing about more energy around us too. So as we raise our love energy, we're raising the love energy of those around us in reciprocation. And at the same time, if we're lowering our energy, we're lowering the energy of those around us too. That's why one bad apple can spoil a whole barrel, is because it reciprocates. At the same time as one good apple can save a barrel, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So we will just continue to evolve and learn. I'm talking about not us as humans, but us as our souls, our spirits. I guess we'll continue to learn, evolve. And do you feel like you chose this school? Do you feel like
I didn't
you
at this point with my experience, I didn't think that I could have or would have. I felt like maybe that was a choice that was made for me. But as I got to heaven, because I did get to the heaven space, as I got there, I realized that everything is opportunity. And if I didn't want something, it wasn't going to happen for me. So if anything did happen to me, it was because at some level, some odd, weird level, I agreed to it.
Mm-hmm.
And that includes a lot of what happened to me as a kid. I had a very abusive upbringing, and that was hard on me. I was thinking that my abuser was the predator and the horrible thing, and that I was preyed upon. But yet, in getting there to the heaven space, I saw my energy on that contract. I saw my agreeance to that, and that I did that because I wanted extra sharpening. I wanted extra refining on me. And so it was my volunteering to have that done because I decided that's what was going to give me the best growth.
Yeah. And that means that you're just a stronger soul in the long run because you chose to have all those things happen to learn so much. And you're just going to be a brighter soul for putting up with the things that you put up with and learning from it.
And it's funny because in this earth, we look around at people with easy lives and we get jealous. But when we get into the heavenly realm, it'll be the exact opposite.
Right.
Those who have had the easy lives, they're going to be looking at us, and we'll be carrying all the tools we got. And they'll be walking around with a little Swiss Army knife, and we'll be some of us carrying around big bushels of tools, great things that we gathered from experience in this life. And those who had it really easy, they're walking away with like a little pocket knife. That's it, and they're going to be a little jealous. But at the same time, there's no way to have true jealousy in that space because it's so full of love. So all they're going to say is, wow, I want, if I get another chance, I want to do more. I want to have more experience. And that's kind of what you find, that it's like going to a buffet or going to a dinner where you get to load your own plate. Some people are okay with just one scoop of peas. Others want a whole plate full of food. And it seems like I got the plate full of food in my case. Yeah.
Yeah, you got a lot of lessons that you probably are taking away from your whole life. Yeah. Do you think that you had a pre-birth plan to have a near-death experience so that you could learn all this?
So I didn't think that I did, but as I again went there and saw the timing and the planning of everything happens because of plan, and we have to agree to all these plans. And even to great traumas happening on the earth, we all have to agree to it before it can happen. And so, yeah, there's a certain level of me. It's definitely a higher side of myself. It's like what you would consider like your high soul or your higher self that agreed to it, because my human self would say, hell no, I wouldn't agree to this.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the hardest things I've ever done, is come back from that.
Oh, yeah.
The hardest.
Yeah. People always have a depression period usually when they come back from these, because they're just like, I don't want to be here.
Yep. And it's weird, no matter how good life gets, you still have phases with it.
Wow.
And here it is 21 years later, I still have phases with it. Yeah.
Right. I really like that you're sharing this perspective of, whatever happens to us is for a reason. We can learn from it. We can take these tools and move on. These tools and these things we learn, these skills, they're not just for this life here. They're stuff that we carry with us, it sounds like, which is
exactly. And most of it's not.
No, I mean, it makes
most
it
of
like
it's
this
not
effort is
here.
more worthwhile.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
And they're tools and skills and attributes we carry for the eternities.
That's great.
And some of us are part of these soul groups, and these soul groups are like soul families, and they're bigger than just like DNA families. They're huge. And in these soul families, you'll find that this soul family needs someone that does a little bit more self-sacrificing. So they send someone down that becomes kind of saint-like and just really sacrifices themselves. Then other soul groups are like, you know, we need someone who's a little bit more focused on self-desire. So we need a selfish person. So somebody volunteers and they go down and they become very selfish in their existence. And it's so that it can impact the whole soul group or the soul family.
Mhm.
And but there's so many layers to this. Like, it is impossible for our brain to even comprehend how many layers there are to just the process of us volunteering and selecting our life cycle, selecting, you know, even our what gender we're born, like everything. Like, it is all there, and it plays to a higher path. All of it, it plays to a higher path.
Like a spider web, it's all connected.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy. It's really neat though when you're in deep meditation and you're plugging into that network, what people would call the quantum realm, or the quantum connection between all of us. As you're doing that through meditation, it appears like the neural network in the brain, where it looks like a web. It looks like this very intricate energetic web, and that's what you're plugging into. That's what you're working from as life is being selected, formed, and grouped. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Well, you went through like a walkabout in heaven, it sounds like, from previous.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Can you tell us all the other lessons you learned?
Yeah. So I got through 2 so far.
Okay.
Authenticity and knowing why we're here. Those are the first 2. And you know, the third one is loving everyone. And that I thought was going to be the first thing, but it ended up being the third thing, because first I needed to be authentic and know why I had come to earth. Then from there I could love everyone. And Drake told me, he helped me understand that loving everyone meant everyone, even those who were mean and evil and bad and you know, in prison or in government leadership. Like, I needed to be able to love everyone to a certain degree, to truly love everyone. And that was pretty interesting to me. And then if I could love everyone, I was going to activate an inner voice. And this inner voice is something we would call like our conscience or our intuition, or in Christianity we call it the spirit. And this voice, it's inside all of us. It's God's connection directly to us. The same way that we are born with an umbilical cord connected to our mother, we are born as souls with an energetic umbilical cord connected to God, to our creator, to source. And if we want, we can strengthen that cord and connection and make that voice louder and louder. And it starts with first being authentic, knowing why you're here, and loving everyone. And as you can do that, you're opening up the corridors of what this voice is, the intuition. And that intuition can get louder and louder. And that we need to listen to that intuition, listen to that inner voice. And if we can, and we can create a balance with listening to the inner voice and not letting technology replace it, because technology will try to replace it for all of us. I mean, think about it. You know, 15 years ago, if you wanted to go somewhere, you didn't pull out your phone. You would go look up a map, or you'd get directions and then you'd go there. But if you looked up directions or you pulled out a map, you knew where you were on the way to the destination. Now, 15 years in the future to now, now if you want to go anywhere, you just bloopity bloop, put it in your GPS on your phone, and it takes you right there. But you have no idea where you are, and you have no idea where you're going to go after. And so in a way, it's gotten easier, but also not better. And your intuition is that way. Is the cell phones and technology will try to replace that intuition. But to me, when a big decision needs to be made, I don't want to check my phone first. I want to check my intuition. I want to check with God, with Source, and find out what direction I should go first. And then I can reflect on technology if I want to. So you know, using technology responsibly, that was one of the lessons that I learned. And that led me to the next lesson, which is release all prejudice. And I felt that I had that. I was raised in a family that I have 2 Korean sisters, so kind of a biracial family. And I felt that I didn't have prejudice. And that's when Drake said, he said, you know, Vinny, I love that you don't have prejudice, but how do you feel about prejudiced people?
Mm.
And I was like, oh, I don't like prejudiced people. I kind of went off on him. I kind of went off and told him what we should do with prejudiced people. And what's funny though is in my mind, he let me visualize myself over here and prejudiced people over there. And he helped me see that with my words, I was taking me out of there and putting me with prejudiced people.
Wow.
And that I myself was joining them in hating them.
Wow.
And that was a big one because I'm like, no, that can't be right. Because prejudice is bad. It's okay to not like prejudice. And he's like, no, it's not okay. And he helped me understand. He knew one of my friends that I grew up with, who was somewhat prejudiced. And he helped me see why he was prejudiced.
Oh.
Not to give me an explanation of like it's okay, but to help me see there is a journey there for everyone. And that most prejudiced people are victims of some sort. And that's the way they're dealing with their victimhood. Is they're allowing prejudice of some sort. But it's not something that's happening out of love. It's happening out of insecurity. So if someone is prejudiced, it's only happening out of insecurity. Like no one who's stable and secure and who they really are is going out there saying, you know what, that religion, that race, that this, that, no. No one who is secure and knows the value that they are with God is going to do that. No one.
Right.
So it only comes from insecurity. So that's what he helped me understand, that, you know, prejudice comes from insecurity. And he helped me understand also that if I can master my thoughts regarding prejudices, I can master the power of creation, because our thoughts are the power of creation. And that was really neat to me. This was long before Harry Potter, at least in you know, mass terms across the United States. But it is almost like he was giving me the keys to a magic wand, where we can all master our own creations by mastering our thoughts, and that we all have the power of creation, that our thoughts are the power of creation. And so that was a neat one. That was the 7th principle. The 8th principle is avoid negative influences, because if your thoughts are the power to create, how important is it that you avoid influences that can influence those thoughts? So avoid negative influences. That empowers your power of creation. And that led to the 9th principle, which is there is purpose in evil. And here's the purpose. If all we have is good choices, we're not growing, we're not learning. So the purpose of evil is to have the bad choice as an option for us to grow. And that's not to say that we're supposed to choose the evil. So we're not supposed to choose it, but there is purpose. And you know, I have people all the time, they say, I can't believe in a God because if there was a God, he wouldn't allow the evil that happens. And I step back from that and say, you need to step out of your paradigm and look at the love that surrounds you right now. Because if you could see that love, there's no way in this world you would consider that there's not a God.
They have to see the dark to see the light. The comparison.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one thing that happened here in Las Vegas, we had the October 1 shooting, and it was an absolute tragedy. We have some very good friends that lost their son in that. Okay. And it was a horrible tragedy. But to see the beauty that came from that also helps me feel like there is light even in the darkest of times. That this community became a different community after that. It really pulled together, and for the first time in my experience of living in Vegas since 2004, which is 20 years now, I saw Vegas become this tight community where neighbors were meeting neighbors that they've lived next to for a decade or 2 decades, and they never met their neighbor. Now they're meeting their neighbor. Now they're talking with them. They were bringing them over, you know, food and goodies, and really building a community the way communities should be built. kind of how it always is in Texas, I know.
Some neighborhoods.
In some neighborhoods, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
But it was really neat to see, though, that as the pendulum swung to this evil act, the correction had so much light behind it. And so that's the way I see the world now, is I see it, you know, when evil things are happening, I know God's going to correct it with light. We might not be able to see right away that correction, but it will happen. And that correction is fundamentally, energetically, law. It happens, period. So whenever there's evil, the equal and opposite reaction will be light and love. And that led me to the last principle I learned while I was there. And as I was getting to heaven, and that we're all one, that every single one of us are one. And the way that we're one is we're all fingers on God's hands. And that for us to hurt or to harm another is to hurt or harm ourselves, because we are all appendages on God's hands, every single one of us. And if we can understand that when we love others, when we care about others, we're loving and caring about ourselves. Yeah. That got me to the heaven space. I actually got touched down in this amazing space. I could talk for 2 hours at least just about the grass. The grass there is absolutely amazing. Like when I touched down in the grass like reached up and met me. I could taste it and smell it and hear actual music coming from the grass there. But this is something that never leaves you. And I actually have like longing dreams of just the initial contact with the heaven space. That's where, no matter what religion you are, when you get there and you plug into the grass, you recognize that this truly foundational force in the universe is love, and it's unconditional love for you. And I don't mean you collective, but I mean you individually. And that everybody who goes to heaven gets to feel this, that you feel just so unworthy of all this love that's just poured upon you. And what's really neat about it is, you know, no matter all the damage I had taken on myself in abuse and having the life that I did, it all just got healed. It all just got cleansed and cleaned off of my soul as I plugged into this grass, as I plugged into the trees and the flowers and water. And this is just the basic elements of heaven. I didn't even go in one building in heaven. And there's actually plenty of buildings. There's a huge building that I was really excited to go into. But I wasn't allowed because I was forced back before I could even go in there. But yeah, again, I could talk for, and no joke, I could talk legitimately for 2 hours just about the grass and about what that's like. And I would probably still not do it justice, because it's still way better than I could ever describe. But I'll tell you that.
Do you find yourself dreaming about it all the time, or do you meditate and try to get to that space again?
Both. Yeah, and when I dream about it, I know that I'm doing something good, because it's kind of like God gives me a gift of dreaming about heaven to help make me not miss it so much. Because I do. I miss it to the deepest part of my soul. And when I woke up, I woke up after 3 days in a coma. And my guy Drake, right before I woke up, I was in heaven, and he brought me over and he said, "Vinny, this is going to be really hard, but it's going to be worth it." And he like gave me this hug. And this hug, oh man, we have nothing like this hug here. Nothing. You could be on all the drugs at once and get all the wealth in the world and be crowned the king or queen of the world and still not get the amount of energy that was coming through this hug. It was just two divine souls coming together and loving God. And that force is powerful, because as it was happening, I could feel, it felt like a pulsar. It felt like more power and more energy than what's in our whole universe here. And I could feel that just between two souls who truly cared about each other. And I just met him. I didn't even know who he was. I just met him. And I felt like he had just met me. Later on, I found out there's more to that story, but I could feel this tremendous unconditional love between the two of us. And when we hugged, it literally did feel like a pulsar. There was a huge pulse of energy, and it expanded out from us, and I could recognize. And even though I was in my soul, I felt an outward side of my soul look and see that the two of us together, we were creating this huge form of light around us.
Mm.
And then I was back into my spirit self, or my consciousness, and at that point I started to hear a special prayer being given to my body, and this is on my body, over my body in earth, or on earth. My brother, my birth brother, was giving a special prayer over my body, and he commanded me to be made whole. He commanded me to come back to my body. And I actually had some animosity
Oh.
because I didn't want to go back. It's like being raised inside solitary confinement, with handcuffs on, with blinders on, and never being able to eat or drink. And then they let you out, and they let you go discover the beauties of this world. And then they say, okay, it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. Get back in the cell. That's what it felt like to me. That's what it felt like. And I could hear the prayer of my brother as he called my soul back to my body. And I feel like I was forced, but there was a higher essence to me, my higher self, my high soul, that had to agree to it, because everything is total volunteering there. We agree to everything. So there was a side of me that had to agree. I just didn't like that side of me.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to go back. And so I did go back. To me, I woke up instantaneously. As soon as he said amen, I woke up. But technically, he had said it around the prayer around 10 p.m. And I woke up at 1:11 a.m. And that was the third day, the third night in the hospital. And I just woke up. I was fine. I was totally fine. They called me Miracle Boy on my wing in the hospital. I tried to escape. I thought I could just go home, and they weren't going to let me do that. So I had to stay and be tested. So from 1:11 in the morning until about 7 a.m., they were testing me, constantly doing all these tests. And each test that I passed, they had a big chunk of paperwork for me to sign, saying that I wasn't going to sue the hospital if I left on my own reconnaissance. And so I signed 6 of those, literally 6 of those packets. I signed. I passed every test that they wanted me to pass, that they could give me. And then I left on my own reconnaissance at 7:30 in the morning that morning. The same morning I woke up. And I left and I went jogging. I went home. I felt still so constricted, because our soul is much bigger than our bodies here. Now, I'm a bigger guy. I'm there's no question. I'm a big guy here on this earth. And I still felt like I was a whale being squished into a sardine can. I felt extremely claustrophobic. So one of the things I loved doing right after my experience was running, because when I would run, I would feel some sense of like getting out of the body. And that was the thing I liked to do the most when I first got back. And I kept hearing Drake tell me, this is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. And it almost to a point where I was like, shut up, Drake. I'm sick of you telling me that. And every time I'd have a bad day, he'd say, I'd hear it again. This is going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it. Now, back then, we didn't have Google, so I used a service called Ask Jeeves, if you remember that, or if you're familiar with that. So I went to Ask Jeeves, and I asked, what's the most dangerous jobs? And I found that underwater welder was the most dangerous job. Second most dangerous was to be a crab fisherman. And then there was like all these other dangerous jobs. So I actually looked into the underwater welding. It was not possible. I would have had to become a Marine first, and then like do all this other stuff.
Because you wanted to go back.
Yeah, I wanted to go back. So then I saw the crab fisherman. I'm like, you know what? And it said if you're a fisherman of king crab in Alaska, you have one of the highest fatality rates of any other job. So I was thinking, you know what? That's going to be it. I'll just have a slip on the deck and I'll get to go back to heaven. So
Wow.
I signed up for a program where you actually pay money. You go out and you kind of get your physicality test, and if you pass, you go on their short list of fishermen, and you could actually go fish for these boats. This was back again, early 2000s. So that was the path then, and I got myself on that list. And shortly after I got myself on that list, I met my angel, my true angel, and her name's Andrea. She's my wife. And as soon as we met, we knew we were supposed to get married. We knew we were going to get married before we went on one date. And
Wow.
and this is what's weird. We weren't even attracted to each other, not yet, not until after we were married. we like actually started to learn to be attracted to each other, because we knew that there was so much energy behind us meeting, and I could see heaven's energy in her eyes and in her demeanor and persona. And she really helped me connect to that heaven space. And one of those things she did is she was helping me find value in the things that heaven wanted me to find value in that I never did find value in. One of those was family, because a lot of my abuse happened in the family. I was always running from family events.
Mm.
And so for her, she was like, you're going to go to family events now. And so we were at this reunion in this little town in Wyoming, and we're watching a historical presentation of the town, and they're showing the different founders of the town and the first clergy of the town. And that's when I see this big slide of this guy go up on the screen, and right away, Andrea, she tapped my shoulder and she goes, "That's your guy." And I was like getting up to leave already, and I was like, "That's not my guy." And I
You're like,
stopped
what?
myself, and then I just started to weep.
Oh my gosh.
I started weeping like a little baby, because here I'm looking at a real picture of my guide. But here's the messed up part. It said his name was Charles. And I'm like, that's messed up, Drake. You called yourself Drake. Why is your name Charles? And I recognized the last name, and it was my grandmother's maiden name.
Wow.
So we went straight from there to my grandmother's house, who thank goodness lived just down the street. We went down to her house, and I go busting in her house, and I'm like, Grandma, what's with this Charles Kazare? Who is this guy? And her reaction was, "Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's
Oh
kind of
my
famous."
gosh. That's
and
crazy.
and
And
that melted me a whole nother level. I got down my knees and started weeping, because now all of a sudden what I thought was possible delusion, possible my imagination, because I had some neurologists convincing me that my brain was making all of this up.
oh God.
Because when you starve the brain of oxygen, they say your brain will make up things. But hello, if your brain's dead, how is it making up things? And to me, I'm now realizing that everything that I experienced was real. And I knew I had felt that it was real, but I didn't know that it was real until this point. At this point, I knew without a shadow of a doubt. Finally, the logic of my brain clicked and said, it has to be real. Because I never saw that man's face ever in my life, ever.
And you had just described it to your wife, and she knew from the description that
She
it
knew
was
because,
listed in him.
yeah, so this was months in between. So we met in April. I died in January. I met my wife in April. And that following July, so we had months to talk about it. And we did talk about it. She was very intrigued with this crazy guy who died and wanted to know more. And so I described as much as I could, and to a point that I had described him so well that as soon as she saw that picture, she knew
Wow.
it. And then not just that, she has her own inner voice.
Oh.
And she has a really strong inner voice. She doesn't think she does, but she has a really strong inner voice. And it was her inner voice that was like, "Hey, do you recognize that picture? That looks like Vinny's guide." And then she said it. And when she said it, I knew it. I knew for a fact it was him. So come to find out, he was my great, 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 great grandfather, and on my grandmother's side. And his name was Charles Drake Kazare. And he went by Drake with his friends and his family, but he also went by Charles in his official capacity. So it was easy for him to distinguish what people wanted from him. So if
Ah.
they called him Charles, he knew they needed his professional side. And if they called him Drake, he knew it was friends or family. Yeah.
And didn't you say he had like a sense of humor? I thought I remember you saying that
Oh,
from a previous
huge sense of humor. And
from the
he,
Drake you met in heaven.
yeah, he still, in fact, he makes me laugh almost every day. He does. Almost every day. So I still work with him. I work with him all the time. He shows up almost every day. When he doesn't show up, I make him show up so he can help me. But yeah, I still work with him on a daily basis, and others. I work with a lot of guides. Yeah.
Oh, so that
That's
means you've got a lot of gifts since you came back.
yeah,
That's just one of
that's a
them.
big one. That's a big one. I've got a team of spirits I work with every single day. I work with angels, and some people are going to be like, whatever. I'm like, dude, be around me for a week. You'll undeniably know that what's going on is spirit and angels. Yeah.
Do you feel like that everyone has the ability to tap into their guides?
Absolutely. All of us are radios. All of us. All we need is some fine tuning and some volume turning up. That's it. So the first thing I like to do is help people turn up their volume so they can start hearing, and then do some fine tuning so that they can tune in to what they want to hear. And I help people tune into the light. I don't help people tune into like fear energy or dark energy of any kind. Like the paranormal people, they don't like me because I won't talk to locked in spirits. I'll help cross over spirits, but I'm not going to talk to anybody who's in some type of purgatory or poltergeist or demon. I don't do that at all. Won't do it. I deal in only the light, and the light is essentially the love frequency that's stronger than me and who I am. Yeah.
What would be your first advice for someone trying to do that? Is it just meditation, or what is
So it's a 2-ingredient recipe. Look at that. You got the balloons. It's a 2-ingredient recipe, and the 2-ingredient recipe is you've got to have joy and you've got to have intention. So if you can put intention around your joy and allow yourself to feel and have joy, you are connecting to heaven. You just have to listen. Yeah. But we're here so that we can learn, and one of those things to learn is how to have joy. Because the weird thing is, when we're in heaven, we're so full of God's love there that we love whatever God loves. We feel whatever God feels there. So we're very much linked to whatever is going around the Creator that's happening to us. And so we're kind of like mirrors of God everywhere. Everything that's going on for God, that's going on for us. So we've learned that if we want joy, we have to find it ourselves. Because in heaven, you just have joy every time God has joy. Every time God has joy, that you're feeling, and which is all the time there. So it's hard for us to individually feel like we have our own joy, a joy that we can feel and own ourselves. Whereas here, that's one of the jobs, is to figure out what makes you joy, what gives you joy, and give yourself regular access to that joy with a positive intention wrapped around it, and you will start seeing your universe change. Your whole world will start changing. Yeah.
I've heard from other near-death experiencers that they said you have to play, you have to have fun, you have to find joy in life, you have to make time for fun, like do stuff that makes you happy. Like everyone's thinking, I gotta make more money, I gotta learn more, I gotta do this, I gotta. But really, you just have to take time to.
I mean, it sounds like it kind of reminds me of, we have to take care of ourselves and refill our own cup in order to have to give to others. So take care of ourselves so we are empowered to take care of others and to help others.
Exactly. And that's what it's about. And we can find so many different levels of joy. Much of our joy we can find in serving others. One thing I love doing, because I actually work with people as a coach on a daily basis. I'm a life coach, and I work with people that would never see a life coach ever, but I help them hack their lives, and I help them. When someone comes to me and says, "I just can't find happiness, Vinny. No matter what I do, I just can't find happiness," and so I tell them the best way to get something you can't find is go give that thing
Mm.
to two people. And you watch, when you've given it to the second person, you will look inside and you will see you have exactly what you were missing or wanting. And it's very weird, but that's how we're built. And we're built that way for a reason. Because as we serve one, we serve ourselves. So as we're feeling sad and not happy, go deliver happiness to two people. And you'll wake up like, wow, I feel wonderful. Why do I feel so happy? Oh, that's right. Because I delivered happiness to two other people.
Wow.
And it's really amazing. It's really, really amazing. If you can deliver to the universe, deliver to God's kingdom, that you're missing, you yourself receive it.
Very nice.
Mm.
Well, how can people find more about how your coaching works and get in touch with you? And
Absolutely. So I have a website, I have a nonprofit. It's called Living God's Light. Everything functions out of the nonprofit. So livinggodslight.com. That's the nonprofit itself. They can also get a link there to Amazon for my book and for Audible too. There's both there. Yeah.
very nice.
Yeah. I know. I can't believe our time is like almost up, or it is up. But like, it's been so great to talk to you. I feel like we could talk for hours and hours.
Yeah, just about the
Well,
grass.
it's
I
like I said,
know.
I honestly, I could legit have a conversation for, and I have done, for more than 2 hours about just the grass. It's that amazing. It really is. And that's the most simple element you get contact with there is the grass. And everything from that is just more complex and more full of God's love for us. And it really, really is. It's almost like the Wonka movies where you walk in that chocolate factory and everything's magical and edible and kind of magical, but at the same time, it's so much more. Yeah.
And do you feel that, okay, so I know we're trying to wrap up, but like heaven, I mean, somebody else, it might not be the grass, it might be something else. I mean, it's going to be something that resonates with me or each
Oh
individual
yeah, I
person.
heard
Is
that
that how
everyone
it's,
has their own heaven.
is
Like
that,
they own.
it's
Mhm.
somewhat
So
dynamic?
here's what's really neat is we're given exactly what we need. We are. To the deepest parts of who we are, we're given exactly what we need. And that's what we find in heaven. And that's the version of heaven I was given. Is there an authentic and real version? There is, but we actually get to perceive it how we need to perceive it. Yeah.
Mm.
Beautiful.
And for those animal lovers, just so you know, you get to have those animals with you if you want them. If you don't want them, you don't have to have them with you either. So yeah.
I have heard that too. That's so nice.
Really, it's been a pleasure spending time with you today,
Yeah, it
Vinny.
has been
Yeah,
fun.
it's been really nice to meet you both and speak with you today. Absolutely.
So yeah, we'll be in touch because it sounds like there's more to talk about, and I would love to hear, in the future, what kind of new realizations you have, because it sounds like you're still, there's still so much to take away from your experience, and it's
Absolutely.
fascinating. Really
Yeah,
fascinating.
still learning from it, still, working with what I was given through the experience. Here it is 21 years now and still learning from it. Still. Yeah.
Did you remember as soon as you woke up? Did you remember that experience?
I didn't. So when I first woke up, I actually didn't remember anything. Everyone kept calling me Miracle Boy, and it was like pissing me off because I just wanted to go home. And it wasn't until that night. So the night of waking up. So I woke up at 1:11 in the morning. That night I was at a dinner with my sister, and we were at a restaurant. She cornered me and she was like, so you died, right? And I'm like, yeah, everyone says I'm a damn miracle boy. And she goes, did you have a near-death experience? Did you see anything? And my brain was like, hell no. And that's what I meant to say. But what started coming out of me, I saw this man. He's my guide. His name is Drake. And he had this long white beard. He had piercing eyes that could look into your soul. And I just started telling my whole experience. And what was so weird to me is I felt like this was coming out of me, but not from me.
Oh, wow.
And that for the first time in my life, I felt like my body got hijacked. And I was in awe though. I'm like, what?
Like
But
you
what's
didn't.
weird is as each thing got said, I was like, oh yeah, it did happen.
Oh my
And it
God.
was like it was like I wasn't allowed to remember right away because it was so traumatical.
Yeah.
And it was probably because if I was allowed to remember right away, I would have grabbed like the sharpest needle or knife and just got myself right back. And I
Yeah.
think that's for me, that's why I wasn't allowed, because I'm a man of action. And I think that in
Mm.
that state of trauma of instantly coming back, I probably would have taken action to get myself right back there. Yeah.
Mm.
So for me, I didn't remember for a few hours. So for about 10 hours after waking up.
And then almost everything came to you.
It all came back, all of it,
Oh my gosh.
all in a single dump, every single memory, every single experience, everything, even to a point where all of a sudden I felt this strong urge to go meet with that medic, that rookie medic
Oh yeah.
who broke protocol. I wanted to go meet with him and say, man, like, you saved my life. I owe you my life. And he wouldn't accept it. I did go meet with him, had lunch with him. He wouldn't let me buy him anything. I was like, I can make your car payment for a few months. Like, let me do something. And nope, he wouldn't let me. He's just like, nope, I'm just doing my job. He did tell me though, he was looking at transferring to be a fireman. And later I checked back with him 1 year later, and he had already transferred. He had become a fireman at that time. So it was a perfect thing for him as well, because he broke protocol. They put him on probation, and he didn't like that. And even his veteran medics didn't like that either. So they helped urge him into the fire side of things, which he could still do the same thing, just a little bit different path. So he was a fireman 1 year later. Yeah.
And I remember from another interview, you said that you asked him if he heard this one's not dead.
Yeah, I asked him, like, did you hear? It was such a loud voice, and he was like, no. He said that he felt like in his gut, in the deepest part of his gut, something telling him this one's not dead. So in a way, he did hear it, just not audibly.
Right.
He felt it like in the core of who he was.
Wow. He had to have, because he was breaking protocol and unzipping and unstrapping and like doing everything he wasn't supposed to be doing.
Right when he was a brand new rookie too. He could have been fired. In fact, that's what they told him. They're like, you're lucky we're not firing you from that. And so, yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah. I feel blessed that he was there.
Yeah.
He's why I'm able to share this here now.
And now you appreciate your life, and you're glad you're back, and you've gotten through all the bad
it doesn't make it easy, but I do. Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're spreading this love and this message and helping other people to be authentic, which is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. All
right, brother. Well,
thank you so
much for spending time with us today.
Yeah, AJ, this is awesome to meet you. Awesome to meet you, Katie. And so glad to talk with you guys. And we can do this again sometime if you like to as well.
That'd be great.
Definitely
if you want to do a Q&A with your viewers, that'd be fun too.
Oh, that'd be fun. Yeah.
That would be fun. Okay, well, take care, brother.